Now here on the show, we work very hard, going sometimes through the drudgery of long test drives to provide you with honest and objective opinions. More often than not, the public agrees with us, but sometimes they don't, because what we can't do is look into the future. But we can dip into the past. Like for example with the Skoda Yeti. When the car was launched in 2010, we loved it. We endorsed it to everyone who'd listen. It was named after a Himalayan monster but drove like an excitable little pony. It was my favorite car in that category and one of my favorite cars of all time. And yet, no one seemed to agree. Problem was that the Yeti did have a couple of flaws. For one, it was quite small for the price you were paying for it, and two, it was a Skoda. Now Skoda's rather dire after-sales reputation follows all its great products like a thick toxic cloud. Skoda is back now with the midlife reboot of the Yeti, and from the offset, let me tell you that it's better than ever. The question is, will you agree? As midlife reboots go, the 2014 Yeti does tick all the right boxes. They have ironed out most of the kinks from the original, changing it but not too much. We are driving this car about 100 kilometers away from Srinagar in a beautiful place called Sonmarg. Considering that the Yeti is named after a Himalayan monster, this should be kind of like a homecoming. What was not a problem with the outgoing Yeti was the engine. Under the hood is a 2-litre diesel that you'll also find in the Octavia and the Superb, as well as a bunch of other VW products. And as engines go, it's an absolute sweetie. This is one of those engines that's like a sugar-hopped puppy. It's anxious and eager and rev-happy and seems ready to do whatever you want it to. So you've got 140 bhp and 320 newtons of torque and a 0 to 100 time of about 11 seconds, which is sharp for an SUV. For its size and performance, it's also quite fuel efficient, giving you a combined mileage of about 13 kilometers to the litre. What was a bit of an issue with the older Yeti though was that the transmission was a little too anxious, and if you weren't working that 6-speed manual gearbox all the time, you'd stall, especially in traffic. Now let me tell you, there are a few things more embarrassing than stalling a nice expensive car at a red light and have some fool in a micro box giving you attitude for being so incompetent. We're test driving the new Yeti in Kashmir and driving it around a fair bit in Srinagar. And let me tell you that this gearbox is an improvement, but it will stall if you're not careful. If the 4-wheel drive doesn't impress you that much, there's also a lighter detuned 110 bhp version that does not have all-wheel drive. This 4x2 variant will be cheaper, and many will ask themselves if they actually need all-wheel drive. Considering that most will not be doing any off-roading in this car, is it just an extra piece of frippery? Maybe, but then where the all-wheel drive shines is with all the improvements it brings to the way this car handles. You've got a Haldex transfer case, which is all new by the way, and when you are driving sanely, like through traffic or that run on the expressway, the car behaves like a normal 2-wheel drive sedan almost. Starts sending up to 95% of the power to the front wheels. If you begin to slip, the Yeti detects it and starts transferring power to the rear, pulling you out of the weeds. Now, if there's one place that SUVs traditionally lose out to sedans, it's handling. But then the Yeti deals with the road like a champ. And that translates into a cornering tightness that's different from the tippy, wallowing feel you get from most SUVs. Throw ESP into the mix and you've got an SUV that feels very comfortable driving around in. The stiff suspension does have a flip side, however. The Yeti is not a pliant mommy wagon like the CR-V. If you hit a big pothole or a speed breaker hard, you will hear a loudish thunk, but fortunately, not much more. So far, so good. The Yeti drove and handled just as we expected to, because this is a Skoda and we do have these expectations. I think this car does deserve the SUV tag because you need to have a couple of things which the Yeti has. A torquey engine, check. All-wheel drive, check. Efficient transfer case, check. Nice stiff taut suspension, check. There's also the off-road package which carries forward from the outgoing model with hill descent function, hill climb function and off-road ABS. This is a car that will surprise you if you ever decide to take it off the road. Now, considering how small this car is, if you do manage to stick yourself into a tight spot, the Yeti is not bloated like other SUVs and you will be able to pull yourself out of a tight spot if you're adventurous enough to get into one in the first place. Now, we're not saying that the Yeti is going to spend a lot of its time off-road. Come on, be realistic. No one's seriously going to buy this car with the sole intention of sliding it around in the countryside. But the important thing is that you know that if you want to, you can. One of the issues that people did have with this car was the way it looked. So gone are the quirky bug-eyed fog lamps and have been replaced by headlamps that most will find classy, but I find a bit bland. Other than that, the dimensions remain the same. The front and rear bumpers have been redesigned, but the flanks haven't changed. From the inside too, you've not got that much that has changed. The stereo gets an update with a touchscreen and Bluetooth, and the steering wheel has changed a bit to accommodate the new Skoda logo. The rear bench will fit 3 in comfort with decent amounts of head and leg room. At the end of a very enjoyable day with the Yeti, I'd endorse this car again. Gone is the bug-eyed look, replaced by smooth sophistication. But that was an easy fix. There are two larger issues here. In a country where SUVs are purchased for volume, the Yeti retains its smallish size. Issue number 2, of course, is the badging. Having a great product is fine, but it doesn't serve any purpose if you can't get it fixed when something breaks.